International Youth Leadership Institute was formed because we wanted young people to not just be citizens of South Bronx and Harlem and Bed-Stuy, but see themselves in a broader context. You know, it's a cliche that the world's getting smaller and smaller, but it's really true. And in our community, for Black and brown kids, many of them are not being prepared. They don't understand how the global economy works. They don't see opportunities that exist for them economically in all kinds of fields. And more troubling than that, there's a lot of mistrust that's engendered among young people towards those who are different. You know, I've often heard people talk about Africans. They don't wear deodorant. It's like a jungle over there, animals roaming around. And we believe that if you have a negative impression of Africa and you're a person of African descent, how can you be whole? How can you really feel good about yourself if an integral part of you and your heritage is not intact? And so we want them to see for themselves that Africans are just like they are. People live in high rises, people live in slums. People have great jobs, people are unemployed. Some people are homeless, although far fewer than here. And people also, you know, have wonderful lives and experiences. So telling someone is one thing, but they're experiencing it is something very different. We wanted them to experience it. In 1989, I co-founded the organization with another person, Keith Brown. And both of us have lived and worked in Africa and bemoan the lack of people of color in jobs there. I worked in the American University in Cairo, and I worked for a college in Nigeria, and I was the only African American in both positions. So I thought that was very odd. And he and I were having dinner one night talking about why that was, and we came up with the realization that, for the most part, kids in our community don't have the pipeline that more affluent kids have. I mean, our uncles are not president of the World Bank, governor of the International Monetary Fund. We don't have those kind of connections. So we thought, what would happen if we were to create a pipeline, a track that would take our kids and give them the kinds of experiences that would propel them into internships, college scholarships, and careers that were international in nature. And that was the genesis of the organization. The organization is located in New York City. We travel around. We have seminars on Saturdays, and we do them in conjunction with other organizations, but primarily at Teachers College, Columbia University, and New York University. And it's very important for us to have students on a college campus because many of our kids are first generation. They'll be the first in their family to go to college. We want them to see that college is for them. We surround them with college. And also that prestigious institutions like NYU and Columbia are available to them. We don't want them to be intimidated at all when they think about those places, but to feel very much at home. And so we do our programs there on Saturdays, what we call the seminars program. And the seminars program is open to anybody in New York City, basically. It's open door policy. We don't screen students out. We accept any student who comes, any student who's interested, and they come to these seminars, and the seminars are based upon topics that students identify. And they're pretty predictable. They want to know about things that affect them directly, things having to do with sex, having to do with the police and relationship with the police, having to do with economics and careers, having to do with the relationship of families, having to do with current events that they've heard about, for example, floods and tornadoes, surveillance of the government. These are issues that students want to know about, they're interested in, and so we organize our seminars around those interests. We invite speakers to come in who have some involvement, some expertise in those areas, and we have a very interesting format. No lectures, because young people in this digital age, they're just not able to sit still and listen necessarily to someone lecturing, especially if they're kind of boring. So we ask the presenter to use 15 minutes to make a point. Bring video segments, photographs, books, other things students can look at, and then we have a very interactive discussion based upon our framework, which is history, culture, geography, and environment. And we teach students to analyze all events using that framework. So they see the dimensionality of every issue. They learn not to stereotype so quickly or generalize, but to think about how does the geography have an influence on this issue? How does the environment that the people live in influence it. What historical factors have led to this, and how does culture play a role? They analyze everything using that framework, and as a result, they become better thinkers, and they become deeper thinkers. Then the seminars program, in addition to that, we have the Community Service and Development Program, and one of our alumni, Jason Warwin, developed that program shortly after he left IYLI and went to college. And in this program, unlike some community service, students not only volunteer, but they develop a project based on their interest. So for example, they're working in the Harlem Legal Agency. They develop a video that tells young people what to do if they're stopped by the police. So they're volunteering, answering the telephone, filing, doing all those things that volunteers do, but in addition, they develop a project. And so the project becomes a way for them to express their vision for social change, or for what they think is going to add or contribute to their society or their community. And then the last two programs, well actually three programs, are two are travel programs. In the winter, we go to Latin America. We spend 8 days. And it's an opportunity for students to practice language. And it's always a Spanish-speaking country, because we emphasize the connection between African Americans, Caribbeans, and Latinos, because all of us have a connection to Africa. And for most of us, it's a connection that we don't really treasure and value the way we should. So in the winter, it's Latin America. In the summer, it could be Latin America or Africa. Sorry, the last program is a middle school program. IYLI sponsors a middle school program. And this program doesn't take kids overseas, but it uses New York City as a foreign laboratory. So they go to Chinatown, they go to El Barrio, they go to Harlem, they go to Little Italy, and while they're there, they conduct ethnographies. They take photographs, they write essays, and they compare the communities they're visiting to their own community. And it's a way to open up the world to them without their having to travel overseas. International Youth Leadership Institute is a volunteer organization. It's a volunteer grassroots organization. Our 25 years, we don't have paid staff. So we've been around that long doing these programs without paid staff. And so when you don't have money, you have to have other things. And for us, collaboration and partnership are key. For example, we collaborate with programs at Teachers College Columbia University to get space to meet. We collaborate with NYU to have access to students who are in their high school programs, Liberty Partnership programs, and also for space. We collaborate with organizations to recruit students because we don't have recruiters. So how do we get students? The word goes out through our partners. We co-sponsor events to raise funds with partners. Without partnership, without our being connected to our community, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. We don't get grants from Ford Foundation or from the large organizations. We have to struggle to get every nickel that we get. And where do we get it? Through our partnerships with our parents, our community organizations, and to some extent foundations, but much less than those others that I mentioned. Well, our biggest accomplishment is that 100% of our kids graduate from high school. Now that's despite the fact that we don't screen. And so kids come to us at all levels. But if we see that someone's in trouble, we make sure they get help. Either we help them directly or we find a place that does help them, because we know we can't do everything. We have to rely on partnerships. So we may send a student to a counseling center, or we might send a student to a legal representation or a legal organization in order to solve a legal problem that the student has. So we have been able to accomplish that 100% high school graduation and 95% college going rate. That's our biggest achievement, I think, because it really guarantees that young people have at least a start in the path that they need in order to become productive, self-fulfilled individuals. I think the parent involvement that we've been able to engender has been really another successful aspect of our work. We work very closely with parents, have very strong parent involvement. And when I hear that parents are not interested in their kids after they leave elementary school, I cringe because it's just not true. Parents are committed to their children, and they demonstrate it in IYLI. We have fundraisers. They work their tails off to help our fundraisers be successful. They bring their kids, sometimes as far away as Long Island, to our seminars. They're involved in getting preparations completed for students, passports, medical exams, oftentimes when they're working 2 or 3 jobs. And so that parent involvement sustained over these 25 years, for me, is a huge accomplishment. It would be impossible to pick a genre because we have so many kids from the Caribbean, from the Latinos, African Americans, Africans. So I would pick an instrument. I would say that djembe represents us because djembe is the rhythm that you find in music in this country. It's an African root. It exemplifies the individuality within the collective good because the djembe player is never alone. The djembe player plays in the context with others, and each one of them stands out at one point or another in terms of putting forth the rhythms, and that very much is what we do. We are very much about individuals, but in the context of a group. The rhythm, within the context of an orchestra, of a whole milieu of cultural influences, of beats and rhythms and sounds. And if I had to pick a genre, I guess I'd have to say it would be hip hop, because that's the music of today. That's the music that all of our young people like. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. But for me, djembe exemplifies what IYLI is about.